Hi, this is Dr. Kurt Wohler for Integrative Medicine Academy. The title of this short video is Mitochondria Melatonin Production and its Role in Reversing Aerobic Glycolysis. We'll talk about some of the implications for inflammatory induced diseases. So much of this information actually comes from a very interesting article. It was an editorial article in 2020 in Medicine and Drug Recovery titled Melatonin Inhibits COVID-19 Induced Cytokine Storm by Reversing Aerobic Glycolysis in Immune Cells. So I'm going to specifically talk about this particular slide, and it's important to understand that when we're looking at melatonin production, it's more than just what's produced in the pineal gland. And in fact, only about 5% of melatonin is actually produced in the pineal gland for circadian rhythm efficiency. It also has some regulatory aspects on hormone production and synchronization, which means approximately 95% of melatonin that's produced in our body is actually produced at the cellular level, specifically in our mitochondria. And a major impact on mitochondrial melatonin is its antioxidant properties, which makes sense because we actually generate oxygen radicals within our mitochondria just because of normal cellular metabolism and oxidative phosphorylation. So this particular article was talking about how mitochondrial melatonin is important regulator over mitochondrial activity, oxidative stress within the immune system. But if we expand that out, we can understand that in other types of diseases like cancer, for example, the same type of mechanism can be induced, something called the Warburg effect, to induce what's called aerobic glycolysis. So we get the maximal amount of ATP production when we produce activity through the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain. And the electron transport chain then produces this bulk of ATP production, which is very important as that cellular energy currency throughout our body. We do produce some ATP through glycolysis, and then we produce some ATP through what's called aerobic glycolysis as well. And if you think about it from a mechanistic standpoint, let's take a cancer cell, for example. It's going to shunt cellular metabolism more towards aerobic glycolysis for quick, efficient production of ATP that it needs for rapid replication. It doesn't want to have to wait for ATP to transition through the Krebs cycle or the electron transport chain, for example. And there's other advantages. Well, the same thing applies to a normal immune cell. So if our immune system is engaged in some type of fight against some type of pathogen, it's going to do the same type of thing. It's going to shift cellular metabolism away from oxidative phosphorylation into aerobic glycolysis for quick access to ATP, because the immune cell is also involved in rapid replication as well as producing a number of chemicals to try to fight the pathogen. So when we think of normal metabolism, glucose gets converted to pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid gets converted to, pyruvic acid moves into the mitochondria and gets converted to acetyl coenzyme A. So right here, pyruvate gets converted into acetyl coenzyme A through the actions of pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. And that acetyl coenzyme A can move off into the Krebs cycle, which then moves over into the electron transport chain for ATP production. But some of that acetyl coenzyme A at the mitochondrial level also gets produced or converted into melatonin. Melatonin, again, having an antioxidant effect at the cellular level. And that's happening throughout the body. So that's very advantageous for a normal functioning system. But under stress, with regards to the immune system, let's say COVID-19 or some other kind of viral infection, there are chemicals that get produced one of those called hypoxia-inducible factor 1 alpha, or mTOR, which actually upregulate a specific enzyme called pyruvate dehydrogenase kinase. And pyruvate dehydrogenase kinase essentially puts the brakes on pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. So therefore, we get a decrease of acetyl coenzyme A production and a decrease of melatonin production. Now that might be okay in a quick temporary standpoint to fight an infection, but it's a problem long term. And clearly would be a problem long term with regards to cancer cell, for example. So also in that process of immune activity, for example, we're going to get an increase of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So we can have runaway inflammation, not just from a cancer standpoint, but from other types of inflammatory induced diseases as well, where we can see that a downregulation of melatonin at the mitochondrial level can put the mitochondria at a disadvantage for ATP production, but also put our cell at a disadvantage of accumulating inflammation. So one of the things that melatonin does not only acts as an antioxidant at the mitochondrial level, it also suppresses the production of mTOR, and in this particular case, hypoxia-inducible factor 1 alpha, which means it takes the brakes or puts the brakes on pyruvate dehydrogenase kinase and releases the pressure off of the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex for increased acetyl coenzyme A production, and then increase melatonin production, and then of course increase ATP production at the electron transport chain level. So there's a lot to think about with regards to this biochemically, but the implications are actually very clear in that melatonin is more than a hormone produced by the pineal gland to help in circadian rhythm efficiency. It has a very important role at the cellular level. So the mitochondria are a central player in cell physiology, but the mitochondria also have a lot of regulatory function in the cell. So we get energy production for sure, but they have a very important role from a regulatory cell physiology standpoint. And we can now see that melatonin is more than just a sleep hormone. It's critically involved in mitochondrial health, preservation function, and helping to reverse dysfunction. We have a course called Mitochondria Mastery Course coming up in January 2023, which is a very in-depth course on mitochondrial function, dysfunction, inducers of dysfunction, its biochemistry, its aspects of cell regulatory function. We look at lab testing, supplement, lifestyle protocols, etc. All things with regards to mitochondrial's connection to our health and diseases and various disorders that all of us could be prone to because of mitochondrial dysfunction. So for more information, you can go to mitochondriamasterycourse.com to learn more about this course coming up from Integrative Medicine Academy. Again, the mitochondriamasterycourse.com is the website. This is offered through Integrative Medicine Academy. For more information, go to that website. And if you have any questions about any of our mastery courses through Integrative Medicine Academy, you can check out the information at our primary website at integrativemedicineacademy.com or email us at integrativemedicineacademy@gmail.com. Again, I'm Dr. Kurt Wohler for Integrative Medicine Academy. Thank you.